The flashing red and blue lights caught everyone's attention in the busy grocery store parking lot. Two women had barely loaded their bags into the trunk when three police officers surrounded them, speaking loudly enough for strangers to stop and watch. One officer accused them of using stolen credit cards. Another ordered them to keep their hands where everyone could see them. The older woman looked confused. The younger one reached for her purse to explain, but an officer pulled it away before she could say a word. Within minutes, phones were recording, people were whispering, and the officers believed they had just solved a major fraud case. They had no idea they were making the biggest mistake of their careers. Margaret Collins was 68 years old and had spent most of her life avoiding attention. After retiring from teaching elementary school, she moved into a quiet neighborhood where everyone knew her as the woman who baked cookies for new families and watered neighbors' flowers during vacations. Her daughter, Emily, lived about 40 minutes away and visited every weekend. Emily was 35, a physical therapist who worked long hours helping accident victims learn to walk again. She was practical, patient, and fiercely protective of her mother after Margaret lost her husband to cancer 5 years earlier. Their Saturday shopping trips had become a tradition that gave them a reason to laugh together, even when life felt heavy. That afternoon started like every other weekend. They joked over grocery lists, argued playfully about which cereal tasted better, and picked up supplies for a neighborhood charity dinner Margaret helped organize every month. As they finished paying, the cashier smiled politely, but another employee quietly stepped into the back office. Neither woman noticed. A customer standing behind them had reported seeing Emily use several different credit cards during the transaction. In reality, Emily had simply sorted through cards before remembering which one carried the grocery rewards. Someone misunderstood what they saw and assumed the worst. The store manager called the police. Officer Daniel Brooks arrived first. He had only been with the department for 2 years and desperately wanted to prove himself. His training officer often reminded him that hesitation could allow criminals to escape. Daniel remembered those words every time he responded to a call. When he heard that suspects might be involved in organized credit card fraud, he prepared for the worst before he even stepped out of his patrol car. Officer Lisa Monroe and Sergeant Kevin Harris arrived moments later. Daniel pointed toward Margaret and Emily as they reached their vehicle. "They're getting ready to leave." Sergeant Harris nodded once. "Stop them." Everything happened fast. "Police! Step away from the vehicle." Emily froze. Margaret instinctively raised both hands. "There has to be some mistake," Emily said. Daniel didn't respond. "Keep your hands visible." People immediately stopped pushing shopping carts. Several lifted their phones. Margaret looked around nervously. "Why is everyone staring?" Emily tried to stay calm. "My wallet has my identification. May I?" "No," Daniel interrupted. "I'll get it." He removed her wallet himself and found several bank cards. "There they are." Emily sighed. "They're all mine. We'll determine that." Margaret's face slowly turned pale. "I've never even gotten a parking ticket." Nobody answered her. Instead, Sergeant Harris instructed another officer to search the vehicle. The crowd grew larger. Someone whispered, "I knew something looked suspicious." Another person quietly shook their head. "It's always the people who seem nice." Margaret heard every word. For the first time in years, she felt completely helpless. Meanwhile, Emily kept trying to explain. "My mother gets nervous around crowds. Please let her sit down." Daniel ignored the request. The search produced grocery bags, blankets for the charity dinner, and several sealed envelopes. One officer opened them. Inside was nearly $12,000 in cash. Everything suddenly became much worse. Daniel looked directly at Sergeant Harris. "That confirms it." Emily's eyes widened. "No, it doesn't." Margaret finally spoke louder than before. "That's donation money." Nobody believed her. The officers separated mother and daughter. Emily watched Margaret begin to shake uncontrollably. "She has a heart condition," Emily pleaded. "Please stop treating her like this." Sergeant Harris remained focused. "If you're telling the truth, you'll have plenty of time to explain." The women were placed in separate patrol cars. Video spread online before either of them even reached the police station. By evening, local social media pages had already labeled them as criminals. Neighbors recognized Margaret almost immediately. Some refused to believe it. Others weren't so sure. At the station, Detective Rachel Evans reviewed the evidence. Unlike the officers outside the grocery store, Rachel had spent 20 years investigating financial crimes. Something felt wrong. She noticed that every credit card matched Emily's driver's license. None had different names. The grocery receipts matched legitimate purchases. Then she examined the cash. Each envelope carried handwritten notes. Community food drive. Winter coat program. Children's library fund. Rachel frowned. She walked into the interview room where Emily sat quietly. "Tell me about the money." Emily answered immediately. "My mother has organized charity dinners for 12 years. We collected donations all month." Rachel asked another question. "Can anyone verify that?" Emily nodded. "About 200 people." Rachel didn't say anything. Instead, she quietly left the room. She drove to the community center herself. Within 15 minutes, she found volunteers decorating tables. When she asked about Margaret Collins, everyone reacted the same way. "Margaret. She's the reason half these families have food every winter." One volunteer laughed nervously. "If she's in trouble, the whole town is in trouble." Rachel returned to the station with growing concern. Then another discovery changed everything. The grocery store security footage finally arrived. It clearly showed Emily sorting through expired gift cards before paying with her own bank card. No stolen cards. No fraud. No crime. Rachel immediately confronted Sergeant Harris. "You arrested innocent people." Harris frowned. "We acted on probable cause." "No," Rachel replied firmly. "You acted on assumptions." Silence filled the room. Daniel listened from the doorway. His confidence disappeared. "What about the cash?" Rachel handed him several documents. The charity organization registered every donation. The bank confirmed tomorrow's deposit appointment. Daniel stared at the papers. Everything he believed had collapsed in less than 5 minutes. Margaret and Emily were released later that night. No charges were filed. But the damage had already spread far beyond the police station. Margaret returned home to find reporters parked outside her house. Someone had spray-painted the word "thief" across her mailbox. The charity dinner lost several sponsors overnight. Parents who once trusted Margaret now avoided eye contact. Emily tried comforting her mother. "It'll pass." Margaret quietly shook her head. "They didn't just arrest me. They took away the life I spent 40 years building." Those words stayed with Daniel. He couldn't sleep. He replayed the parking lot again and again. Margaret's trembling hands. Emily asking for basic respect. The growing crowd. His own certainty. He realized he had never actually looked at them as people, only as suspects. The department prepared a short public statement calling the incident an unfortunate misunderstanding. Daniel read the draft. It barely mentioned Margaret or Emily. It contained no apology. He walked straight into the chief's office. "This isn't enough." The chief looked surprised. "What do you suggest?" "We tell the truth." The chief hesitated. "It could expose the department." Daniel answered quietly. "We already exposed ourselves." After several difficult meetings, the department agreed to hold a public press conference. It wasn't popular inside the station. Some officers believed apologizing would make everyone look weak. Daniel disagreed. The day of the conference arrived. Television cameras filled the room. Margaret almost declined the invitation, but Emily convinced her to attend. Daniel stepped to the microphone first. His hands shook. "I believed I was protecting the public." He paused. "I was wrong." He looked directly at Margaret. "I never gave you the dignity every innocent person deserves. I judged first. I investigated later. For that, I am deeply sorry." The room remained completely silent. No prepared statement could erase what had happened, but everyone knew those words hadn't come from lawyers. They came from regret. Reporters immediately shifted their attention toward Margaret. She slowly approached the microphone. Many expected anger. Others expected tears. Instead, she surprised everyone. "I accept your apology." Daniel looked stunned. "But accepting it doesn't erase what happened." She continued calmly. "I hope every officer remembers that uniforms give authority. They don't remove the responsibility to see people as human beings. Her words spread across the country. Unlike the first viral video, this one showed dignity instead of humiliation. Support poured in from strangers. The charity dinner, which had almost been canceled, received more donations than ever before. People who had doubted Margaret began showing up with groceries, blankets, and handwritten apologies. Then another unexpected twist arrived. The grocery store released its own investigation. The employee who called police admitted he had exaggerated what he believed he saw, because he wanted recognition for helping stop crime. He had never actually witnessed fraud. He had guessed. The store publicly apologized and funded the community charity for the next 3 years. Daniel requested a transfer out of patrol. Many assumed he wanted to escape embarrassment. The truth was different. He joined the department's training division. Every group of new officers heard the same story during their first week. Not because supervisors ordered it. Because Daniel insisted. He showed the body camera footage. He explained every rushed decision, every assumption, every missed opportunity to slow down. Then he always ended with the same sentence. The easiest person to arrest is an innocent one you stop listening to. Months later, Margaret visited the police academy to speak with new recruits. Daniel greeted her at the entrance. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Finally, Margaret smiled. "You look less certain than you used to." Daniel smiled back. "I've learned certainty isn't always a strength." Inside the classroom, recruits listened as Margaret described how quickly ordinary lives could be changed by public judgment. She never tried to shame anyone. She simply told the truth. When she finished, every recruit stood and applauded. As she walked outside with Emily beside her, they passed the same kind of patrol cars that had once filled them with fear. This time Margaret didn't look away. She simply kept walking, knowing the worst day of her life had become the lesson that changed many others. And the flashing lights that once stole her dignity ended up revealing who truly deserved to wear the badge.